Hi, my name is Paula Bowman, and I'm with the Northwest Wayne County League of Women Voters. But on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Michigan, I'll be narrating this tutorial about preparing a print voter guide for local races in Tables, a Microsoft program. I must give a salute to lifetime member Betsy Cushman from the Dearborn Heights League, who at one time was both the editor of the state's print voter guide and her local print voter guide. She's the one who taught me how to use this method and was a great help to me, especially for the first year. We pretty much all know why voter guides are so important to your community. A lot of people have no desire or the knowledge to read Vote 411, and it's not just senior citizens. Information about local races is hard to come by, and this is one of the best possible ways to work the League's mission of providing nonpartisan election information to the public. And as a bonus, our visibility is increased. Before you get started, these are some of the things you should consider. This tutorial, as I said, is based on Microsoft Tables. If you've never used Tables, go to YouTube and take a few of the tutorials. And as you progress in that program, you can ask anything on Google and get an answer in terms of how to adjust the margins or highlight or anything. Print voter guides cost money. The cost depends on your printer, the length of your voter guide, and the quantity you want to distribute. To keep the cost down, I'll be mentioning a few tips along the way, including printing only in black and white, printing on both sides, skipping the pictures that can be found on Vote 411, and manipulating the tables so there is little waste on the pages and you get a maximum amount of material. You will need to work closely with your voter service team as well as your Vote 411 coordinator. Candidate questions and response limits will match whatever you have that appears on Vote 411. The invitation letter should indicate that a candidate's responses to questions will also appear in a print voter guide. This might be another incentive for the candidate to submit their responses on time. Decide where you want to circulate these: libraries, senior citizen facilities, clerk's offices. Will you place them next to the state's print voter guide or stuff the local guide into the fold of the state guide? Delivering the voter guides takes some volunteers. More are needed if you go the stuffing route. Completing a print voter guide is a super tight timeline. You are trying to get as much information from Vote 411 as possible, load that information into the Tables program, format it all, have it proofread, printed at lightning speed, and then manage distribution. This means that you need to have at least one person committed to doing this in that short window of time. Okay, let's get started. I'll be using an old voter guide from Livonia from 2020 for this demonstration. After doing this for a number of elections, I have found the format I use to be the best one to relay election information to the public. That said, you can use any changes or do any formatting you choose. So let's start with the cover page. Right off the bat, you'll note that where the orange star is at the top, I do not use our full horizontal logo. Why? Because it just takes up too much space, and saving space means saving print costs. I've used just a black and white LWV logo, and you can find that black and white logo on the branding and logo page of the League management site because it looks better than the color one when you print this in black and white. We don't use color because that really bumps up the printing cost. This cover page is not designed with Microsoft tables, but with text boxes. The top text box with the logo has all the information about what community this is and which election. Below that is the information about your league. Note that you don't have to put a phone number of your league. We don't even have one anymore. Below that are two text boxes. The one on the left with the purple star is like a table of contents. All the races that are included in this guide are noted, and when you finish the whole guide, go back and put the page numbers in. And I want to point out at the bottom entry of this text box, I note where the uncontested races are, and we're going to get to that in a few minutes. In the right text box with the green star, that includes information about what is part of the state voter guide, so people aren't wondering why we don't include it. The text below, marked with a blue star, states some factual information about the voter guide as well as disclaimers. And note the footer way at the bottom. I put the copyright date and your local league and page number. You can change the footer by using the Insert tab on the menu, on the tables menu. I'd also mention put the copyright date as the year of your production. You don't have to register it with anyone, just put it. Nobody ever challenges you. This is where the tables program comes into play. We start with the highest office first, State House or Senate, and you need to remember that Michigan's Vote 411 collects all the responses for state Senate and state rep, but they do not print them in the print voter guide. This is up to the local leagues. You'll see that I have followed that by county races, then judicial races, local races, then community colleges and school boards. At the top of each race, and I've put the red star there, it's best to note the race and, if necessary, the area it covers. This may not be necessary in more upstate areas or rural areas where one representative covers the whole community. But in Metro Detroit, one city or township may have more than one state rep. I also put the term next to the race and vote for 1 or 2 or whatever, all on that line. Now comes the part where you have to choose which questions you are going to print. Vote 411 usually asks more than 3 questions, and I'm talking about Vote 411 for state races. The state reps and the state senators often get 5 questions, but if I tried to fit all of those in, it would be way too big. I'd have to change the total formatting or use such teeny tiny print that it would be unreadable. So we choose 3. We work with our voter service team and choose the 3 that are best for our community. You'll note in the candidates box that has a green star, we let voters know they can find more questions and responses if they go to Vote 411. All the candidate information, also known as biographical or bioinfo, and the questions and responses come from Vote 411. The Vote 411 person can export that info to you as an HTML document, which can then be opened in Word or Google Docs. Contact the state Vote 411 coordinator to get the state races, but contact your local Vote 411 coordinator to get the others, and that means county, local, school board, all those. And believe me, your Vote 411 coordinator knows how to do this. Underneath the candidates' names and party initial, meaning D or R for the party, there should be space to put the bio information, and I've starred that in purple. You can see it a little better under James Townsend. Be sure to be consistent. If you bold any of this material or use abbreviations, use the same for all the candidates. Consistency in presenting information from candidates feeds into our nonpartisan mission about being fair to all the candidates. To the right of the candidate's bio are the responses to the questions. It's really just a cut and paste procedure. The voter guide contains a ton of information. So I've done my best to make it a little more user friendly. Note where the orange star is. I try to leave a space at the top and bottom of each response just to give it a cleaner look. With a blue star at the bottom of this page, you'll see that I had a little room. It wasn't enough to start and finish another candidate or another race, but enough to put a filler in, which is basically nonpartisan election information. The export looks like this. Now, as I said, it's just a matter of cutting and pasting. Note that the pictures are included. It's up to you whether you want to put the pictures in your print voter guide. If you're doing color, that would usually be great, but they don't print real well in black and white. And to me, they always just took up too much room. The info on the export page is all mushed together. I've highlighted in gold the responses that you, as an editor of the local guide, are looking at. But since it's in a Word document, you can make the titles bigger, condense the print, whatever makes it easier for you to follow all this mushed up information. The export is pages and pages of info. So do what works for you in terms of making sure you're putting the right response in the right candidate's box. Write down what fonts and post you use for all of the responses, the bio, the headings. I know you can do this as a table, or as a design presentation a style presentation in Microsoft Tables, but I've always found it just to keep a list. So I put what font and print type I used for the heading, what type for the candidates, whether I capitalized it, what type and font type I used for the candidate name, and so on. But use whatever you see fit. If the styles guide works for you, go for it. For as long as I can remember, our league has used these two basic questions for all offices. They're the ones marked with the green star, except for judges. We know that candidates answer a question any way they want to, even if they aren't really responding to what was asked. So I'm not sure the candidate or the questions we ask are really important. This consistency of asking the same question makes it easier for us to prepare the tables program in advance and eliminates some risk of errors. Marked by the orange star, we have someone here who didn't respond. It's still important to include their name and party and then put did not respond in time for publication in both response boxes. A candidate may still reply after the due date in Vote 411, so it's important that you include those words in time for publication. And believe it or not, we have had candidates who respond to one question, but not the other. When you get a bunch of people not responding, it's somewhat of a relief in terms of space. You'll see on this page how I was able to combine 3 races in one page because 4 of the candidates didn't respond. A few things I want to mention on this page. Where the blue star is at on the left margin, you'll see that it's helpful, or I'm sorry, it is, I have noted the unopposed races. I think it's very helpful to include this in case people have a favorite candidate and they're wondering why they don't show up. I put this section on the table of contents as we saw on that cover page we looked at. And this, I think, really helps voters who wonder why certain races don't just show up. Whether they read every word of this is another matter. But I want to mention, too, that this voter guide was 14 pages. And you'll see that down on the bottom footer. I was doing my best to reduce and use the space that was available. So I was able to stick a long county proposal, and that's where the purple star is. I've put it in a different font. I've put a text box around it. You can do anything you want to make it look isolated from the regular candidate responses. Be sure to use the complete ballot proposal language, not just a short version. And I'm sure your Vote 411 person is doing the same. On this next page, I want to remark that I never start a candidate's response unless I can fit it all on the same page. To me, it's confusing for a reader to have to find the balance of a response on the next page. Because of that, you'll see I also had a little room at the bottom here. So instead of starting a new race or a new candidate, I just used it with a filler about election information. We did that on a previous page too, and we're going to have more sample fillers later in this discussion. I wanted to mention a note about this particular filler. You cannot recruit members, but you can solicit donations to your education fund, your C3 fund, and I have spelled that out in that message. A note here about the question headings where the purple star is. I show them once if both candidates on this page are running for the same office. But let's say I couldn't fit candidate number 2, Bill Irving, on this page. I would have started over again on the next page and showed the questions again so the voter didn't have to flip back and forth. Note there's yet another spot where I was able to put in a blurb at the bottom. Here are some of the voter guide fillers that I've used. Feel free to create your own. Be sure to use the correct logos for Vote 411 and the League. The Vote 411 logo I used back in 2020 on page 2 of this voter guide is outdated. So when I do it this year, I'm going to have to make sure I use the current one. The first filler about the rules we establish for Vote 411 and thus the voter guide is really important. I'm not sure why it wasn't used in this guide as a filler in 2020. If you can fit it on the front page of your voter guide, that really is the best. But if not, put it anywhere else where you have a little room. Other common fillers are noted here, but please do what works best for your community. Let's wrap this up. Once the information is collected and your league has determined how many races you'll cover in the local guide, plus how much you can spend, consider saving paper and money by creating multiple guides for your communities. In my league, Northwest Wayne County, we cover 13 municipalities and 8 school districts. So in 2020, and I don't want to scare you, but I prepared 8 different versions of the local print voter guide, one for each area covered by one of the 8 school districts. For instance, I had one voter guide for Belleville, which covered 3 municipalities, but they all shared the same school district. So they were all together. I did the same thing for Wayne and Westland, but then I did individual guides for the communities that had one school district just for them, like Garden City, Northville, and Livonia. The templates I used were similar, and I found I could copy and paste a lot of the material, especially all the county information. It wasn't like creating 8 different versions from scratch. My largest guide was 24 pages, and my smallest guide was 9 pages, which was for our small community of Garden City. The templates were similar, and I could copy and paste a lot. If I had made one voter guide and printed every school district, every township race, every state rep, and so on, it would have been 114 pages. When my 8 local guides were printed in 2020, we spent just over $1,500 for 2,200 voter guides total between 9 and 24 pages. But if I had put everything in that one voter guide for 114 pages, I estimate the same number of voter guides for all those communities would have been over $5,000. Proofreading is important. My favorite way to proofread is to print the draft of the voter guides and have Vote 411 on your computer screen in front of you. It is also extremely helpful to have a proofreader other than you, the creator, do that job. But remember too, you're not proofreading the candidate responses. Those are already there, copied and pasted. You don't have to proofread for punctuation errors or anything. It really is something that does not require editing. A word about hyphens. You can control hyphenation in Microsoft Tables or Microsoft Word by having it done automatically or choosing to do it manually. I found that when hyphenation is done automatically, it is way too frequent and makes the text look really choppy. I prefer to do it manually, if at all. The one time I really use hyphenation is when I need just one more line of extra space on the page, and hyphenating a few words in the response will do the job. Be sure to give the tax exemption letter to your printer. If you need it, it is on the LWV only page of the members section of the LWVMI website. And be sure you give your printer explicit instructions. We've used the same printer for our local voter guide for many years. They do a lot of work for us. They like the league and are very trustworthy. And I simply send them a PDF of the voter guide files with these instructions: the number of copies. I want to tell them to print on both sides, black ink only, staple and collate in the upper left-hand corner. And I also put the need date. I think I forgot that on the slide. If you send a file in Microsoft Tables, you risk some formatting changes when the printer gets it. That's why I always send it in a PDF. Just as librarians are thrilled to get state voter guides, they are equally thrilled to get local guides. But I include a letter with the delivery stating that this is a limited supply and no more are available. You don't want them giving out these guides as people walk in the door. Some even save them under the counter. But we also indicate that all of this information, whether it's available in print or not, can be found on Vote 411. And there's a sample library letter on the following slide. Print the guides on your website too, on your same page that tells people how to use Vote 411, list your print voter guides, let them know where to find them. And this too shows all the work you've done and is good visibility for the league. If you would like a Word copy of the full voter guide of the one I used in this demonstration, if you want to use it as a template to see what fonts I used and how I formatted and spaced the tables, you can download that Word document on the LWV only page. Here is the library letter I spoke about. You can read that later. And now we come to the final slide. I wish you best of luck on this project. You're always welcome to contact me if I can be of assistance. Thank you for listening.